In order to do all the hacking that we did in mobile platforms, we had to change our VM settings, and we need to set them back so that we can continue with other activities. In this activity, we're just going to return the VMs to their original configuration. What you want to do is, first of all, change the network adapter settings for the Kali and Server 2016 VMs. Change them back to NAT mode. On Server 2016, come up to the upper left, click Player, and go to Manage Virtual Machine Settings. Open that up. And in the Hardware tab, go down to Network Adapter and just make sure it's back to NAT. Click NAT, click OK. Do the same thing in Kali. While we're here, let's go to Kali. I'm going to Player, Manage Virtual Machine Settings, and I'm setting it back to NAT. Now, Server 2016 originally had a hard-coded IP address. We need to put that back. We need to put it back to 16. Whatever your subnet ID was, we need to put it to 16. Coming back to Server 2016, come down to the lower right-hand corner and see where the network icon is. And right-click that, Open Network and Sharing Center. You can also just go to Start and go to Control Panel and choose Network and Sharing Center also down here. Got to find it. There it is. So either way, change adapter settings, and you'll find your Ethernet adapter. Either double-click it and go to and click Properties, or right-click and go to Properties. Find TCP/IP-v4, double-click it. Use the following IP address. You want to put this back to the address that it originally was when we were doing all the other activities. If you don't remember the subnet, like we know it has to be 16 at the end. If you don't remember the subnet, open a command prompt and just see what lease it got from VMware. Type ipconfig. I can see that mine is 192.168.75, and then I got a lease of 143. I don't want 143, but I do want the 192.168.75 part. And you can see I'm looking at Ethernet 0 here. I'm going to go back to the Ethernet 0 properties. I'm going to double click it, click Properties, double click TCP/IP-v4, and I'm going to put in 192.168.75. We expect Server 2016 to be .16, so I'm changing it back to .16. 24-bit mask, 255.255.255.0. Default gateway should be subnet.2, which is what VMware does. Mine is 192.168.75.2. So let me just put that in. 192.168.75.2. Preferred DNS. We can just make this one 8.8.8.8 because we are not using DNS. We're not using the DNS in Server 2012. We don't care. Click OK, close. Come back to your command prompt, type ipconfig again, press enter, make sure it has the new IP. Come over to Kali, make sure it picked up a new IP. Sometimes we have to bounce the interface. I'm going to log in. Let me click and drag this thing up. Username root, password is tour, T-O-O-R. And in Kali, as soon as I get a desktop, I'm going to open a terminal and I'm going to type ifconfig. And I'm just going to make sure that I have my new address in the same subnet, 192.168.75. whatever. And again, like I said, your subnet is likely to be different. I don't know if that for a fact, but it's likely to be different. Now that I have my Kali desktop, let me open a terminal and let me ifconfig. And if we have to, we'll bounce the interface. And if we really have to, we'll reboot Kali. Sometimes these virtual machines act a little funny. Let me ifconfig. And sure enough, it picked up an address in the correct subnet, 192.168.75.156. I need to just, moving forward, make sure that I use this address. If for some reason Kali did not pick up the address properly, you can bounce the interface a very easy way. You can come up to the upper right and you can click that little down arrow. You can come to the wired connection and you can turn off. And now the interface is down. Then you can come back up here a moment later. Just give it a few seconds. Go to wired off and connect again. And you have to give it a moment because it's going to go and try to get an address and all of that. After a minute or so, try an ifconfig again and see if you picked up the proper address. If you still didn't get the address properly, then just reboot Kali, because sometimes these VMs act a little funny. We have changed the adapters back. Now let's just make sure that Kali can ping server 2016. If it can ping server 2016 and server 2016 responds, then they are talking once again. So ping 192.168.75.16, press enter. Yes, I see the replies coming through. Press Control-C to stop. One last thing to do. Go to server 2016. If you want, this is optional, if mail enable is running, if it's running, just shut it down. So if you still have mail enable and it's on, mine was off because I turned off my VM and I shut down my machine. But if mail enable is running, you can just simply close it. You don't need it for the rest of this lab. So if this is running. Everything else, you're pretty much set. So you can shut this down. We don't really require it now. And we don't need to save any settings. If you ever want to revive this and do email activities again that your mobile device can participate in. And we did all of this because we needed to have a mobile device participate in all of this stuff. You can go back to, if you ever want to return to this, you can go back to activity 16.1 and reset up the entire lab, or the lab change rather. You can go set this up again. Otherwise, we don't need to use the mobile platform anymore for the rest of these activities. So now it's time to move on to our next module.